Welcome to the Next Dimension Podcast, your portal to an extended reality. Every week we talk about the hottest topics in XR and let you join the discussion live on MRTV. And now, get ready for another exciting episode coming up.
Hi and welcome to the second episode of the Next Dimension Podcast, where every week we're going to talk about the hottest topics in VR and AR. And this second episode is already a very special episode because we have a very special guest. It's Guy Godin, the developer of Virtual Desktop. Guy, how are you doing?
Very good. Thank you for having me, Sebastian. Really appreciate it.
Guy, I'm really honored to have you on the show. As you know, I'm a big fan of Virtual Desktop, and you have brought wireless PC VR streaming to so many people for the Quest 1 and Quest 2. So thanks so much, and I'm so much looking forward to talk to you in this podcast. Also, of course, here, our resident guest, it's Tony from VR 365. So, Tony, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Absolutely.
Great to have you here back. And wow, I can't wait for today's talk because it is a really, really exciting one since we have a very special topic. And the main topic of today is actually Facebook's dominance in virtual reality bad for virtual reality? So we all know that Facebook has invested so many millions into virtual reality. And well, they've given us so many amazing things, right? Like all the software that we wouldn't have, like Lone Echo and all these special games if it wasn't for Facebook, right? And also we wouldn't have a Quest 1 and a Quest 2, which is very affordable at $299. And they really help to push it into the mainstream and allow more and more people to get into virtual reality. So without a doubt, they've done an amazing job with pushing out VR. But also, we need to talk a bit more about the dark side, the dark side of this Facebook dominance. What does it actually mean? And might it actually be hurtful to VR? Like, how about the competition? Do they still have a chance to get into VR for a hardware company that probably wants to build a VR headset, right? And how about all these people who build great software for virtual reality, like Virtual Desktop from Guy Godin, for example, or like the Your Fitness app, or like Bigscreen? Do they actually still have a chance if Facebook has this kind of dominance? That's what we're going to talk about. And also, of course, we're going to find out more about Virtual Desktop, the original from Guy Godin. We're going to find out about the backstory, all these interesting stuff. And I really can't wait to learn more about this. And also, we're going to talk a bit about the current topics. We definitely will talk about Jurassic World Aftermath, the game that came out for Quest 2, and also, again, we're going to talk about Medal of Honor, because now we've played a bit more than last week, so that is going to be really, really interesting. So for all of you who have not yet heard about the Next Dimension Podcast, this is a very new podcast. It's the second episode, right? And in here we talk about VR and AR, of course, and well, we also talk about the topics, well, that are probably a bit more hot, like Facebook, and also talking about the negative sides. Probably you have not heard about this topic on other podcasts so much, and I believe that is like one important topic that we should discuss more in this community. So every Saturday, this is going to go live here down on MRTV, 9 p.m. Central European Time, 8 p.m. London, noon in San Francisco, and 3 p.m. in New York City. And it's also an audio podcast. You can find the Next Dimension Podcast on Spotify right now, on SoundCloud, and on Google Podcast. For Apple, iTunes, we're still waiting for them to say, yes, it's okay. All right, so you can have us as audio podcast as well. And one more thing I need to say. This podcast is also about you audio podcast. You can find this is also about you joining this podcast and like making your opinion heard. So you can vote. You can vote live if you're watching this live. Check out the link down in the description of this video where you can vote on the question, is Facebook dominance actually bad for virtual reality? And you can answer. You can either say, absolutely, it's very bad for the ecosystem and the competition gets killed. Or you can say, yeah, it's not good and I might switch if there is some competition for the Quest. Or you can say, no, it's all right. They are pushing VR to mainstream. Or you can say, absolutely not. Without Facebook, VR would be dead already. So please vote. The direct vote link is down in the description of this video. So please make your voice heard. This is how you can directly enter. This is how you can make your voice heard here on the podcast. So please do simply vote. The link is down in the description of this video. All right. So now we can start to talk a bit. And I first want to talk a bit with Guy Godin about your week and actually in general, what are you up to? So of course you are the programmer of Virtual Desktop. So nowadays the app is out, people love it. So how is your day look like, or your work week? Do you still have to do lots of improvements on the app, or what do you actually do?
Yes, I keep updating the app and improve things. I just released an update earlier this week that improves the tracking, makes it more accurate. So I'm always tweaking things to make the experience better. And otherwise, I do lots of support on Discord and Reddit and Twitter. So I try to answer questions that people have and help them, because there's a lot of possible things that can go wrong, right? When you stream VR games from your computer, right? Your network setup is important. What you have installed on your computer can affect things, right? So it's lots of support to do.
All right.
And I'm also working on new things that I can't talk too much about. I'll release in the future.
Okay, nice. So you're still working on it, and probably very exciting futures are still going to be coming up. So do you still play VR yourself?
Not so much. I don't really have time to play games much. The last game I played was I tried Medal of Honor a little bit. I played maybe for half an hour, just to make sure it works, and it worked well. So
all right. So you do have to play through all of the new games just to find out if there might be any hiccups with Virtual Desktop.
Right, especially the big titles like the AAA games, the big ones that people are going to play on launch day. And thankfully, Medal of Honor worked on launch day. Now it doesn't work as well because of the patch. But anyway, so there's always little tweaks that I have to make to make sure things remain working in a working state.
So you have to update Virtual Desktop really often. Do you update it every week? Is there an update every week, or?
I try not to do it too often because what happens is then people think, oh, the update broke my setup, when in fact it's just your Wi-Fi is just more busy this weekend, right? So I try to do once a month, maybe less often if I can.
All right, cool. So the latest update of Virtual Desktop, you improved the tracking. Well, honestly speaking, I'm surprised that you can even improve it, because whenever I use Virtual Desktop with the Quest, it seems pretty perfect to me. So what kind of things can you still improve, and how could you find that there is probably something that you can still improve?
Well, there was a bit of issues with some games with the velocity of the controllers. Like if you played H3 VR, the flick of the revolver, for example, wouldn't work. Strange,
really?
But it's just a matter of the velocity not being in the correct space. So those kind of little compatibility issues that I have to tweak, because for people who don't know, Virtual Desktop essentially is just a big hack, right, to play VR games from your computer, because Oculus doesn't provide a driver for other headsets to play games. So essentially, I rely on a hack to be able to fake the runtime in games to make it think that a Rift is connected, when in fact there's none. So,
Right. So probably, now it just came to my mind that probably there are some viewers or listeners who even don't know about Virtual Desktop. Guy, Before we keep on talking about virtual desktop, could you quickly tell our viewers and listeners what virtual desktop is and what it can help them do?
Right. So I have two apps, one that's wired and one that's wireless. The wired one I started developing in 2014. Basically, lets you connect to your computer and use your computer while wearing a VR headset. The wireless version, which works on Quest, today in Quest 2, does similar things where it lets you connect to your computer wirelessly, but it also has an added feature that lets you stream PC VR games from your computer to your headset so that you don't have to use a cable.
All right. Basically, that is the functionality that everybody wants, right? To play wirelessly.
Right.
I mean, sure, there's also some people who want to work on their computer, that's for sure, and that's how you started, right?
Yeah.
But I really think like, wow, this ability to play your Lone Echo like wirelessly on your Quest 2, that is pretty amazing. And that's only possible now with your app, right? Because it's not being supported by Facebook like by themselves. They want to do that, and we're going to talk about that later. But right now, it's like you have to get virtual desktop to make it happen.
Right. And that was the only way also when the Quest launched. I pushed an update to my app a few weeks after it launched, and there was no link cable at the time because it didn't announce anything like that.
Right.
So that was virtual desktop was the only way to play your PC VR games at the time when it released.
Exactly.
And then a few months later, they released Oculus Link, which is a cabled version, if you want, of that feature. And they still haven't released the wireless feature.
Right.
So far it's the only way. Or there's some open source software that lets you do that, but generally it's a little hard to get it going.
Right, exactly. So for all the people who are using a Quest and who are wondering like, okay, how could I probably play PC VR games? Of course, there's the link cable, which is very nice, but it costs like $79, which is, in my opinion, very expensive for a cable. And in Europe, it's even more expensive. It's like 89 euros, which is like $100. So it's very expensive. And your app, you can get it for, I think, like $15. Is it correct? Or is it
$20 US.
$20. Okay, $20 US. And well, it's cheaper than the cable, and you don't even need a cable anymore. So everyone who still is wondering how to play PC VR games on the Quest, definitely look into virtual desktop. And you can check out the link down in the description of this video and of this podcast. I've linked Guy's website, and well, you can check out virtual desktop there, and you can buy virtual desktop in the Oculus Quest store, right? That's how you would go about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Guy, I'm so much looking forward to get to know everything about your app and all your thoughts later in this podcast. So thanks first of all this. Then Tony, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Okay, how was your week? What were you up to? Did you play some VR stuff? What did you do?
Yeah, well, one of the things I was working on this week is, so on VRGameRankings.com, I had this one ranking where it was all about the best free Oculus Rift games and experiences. And if you did like a Google search and this popped up, it was like a super old list from like a couple of years ago. And it was super embarrassing because I had like Robo Recall and all these different things that were free when you bought an Oculus Touch. They were free, but now 2 years later, they're not free. And I just forgot about this ranking, and it was just out there and it was giving bad information. So I wanted to fix it all up and make it more up to date. And so I was doing that. So I was really looking into like what's all the best free games and experiences. And then just the other day on my channel, I did a show with Chris Richardson where we talked about a lot of the best free games and experiences. So if there's anybody out there that is a brand new like PC VR person and you don't want to spend a lot of money on stuff, there is an incredible amount of free games and experiences. And we were really getting into the experiences, the non-games, which a lot of people don't think about it, but there's so much good non-gaming experiences like Blade Runner Memory Lab and Henry and Dear Angelica and Mayubi and all these different experiences that you can try. And so I kind of got into that a little bit. I did play some more Medal of Honor, of course. Wanted to play the new dinosaur, Jurassic
World.
Park. I mean, Jurassic World. Yeah, I always say Jurassic Park. Like Jurassic World is like a new thing. I'm not really into this world. And you know what? I kind of like the Jurassic Park movies better. All right.
Okay.
But But yeah, haven't played that yet, but we can talk more about that when we get to that.
All right, great. So, how do people find the VR Game Rankings website if they want to check out the 50 best games that are free?
Yeah, you just go to vrgamerankings.com, and then at the very top, there's like different categories, and Oculus Rift, it's the top. You just put your cursor on the Oculus Rift one. There's like a drop-down menu, and the top 50 free Rift games and experiences is the list. And I'm going to be updating that list more, and we're going to have like a top 100. There's honestly, like me and Chris were talking about this, Chris Richardson, we were talking about somebody can get a PC VR headset and live off free games and experiences. Seriously, there are so many games, but most people don't know that.
All right.
Most people think, oh, if you buy a PC VR headset, you got to buy all these games and it's a very expensive thing to get into. It's not that. I mean, there's so much content to be able to check out.
You can play Rec Room forever. You can play Altspace forever, right? You can find so many things in VR chat. It's never going to stop. It's amazing. Yeah, you don't have to spend so much money, and you can even meet like new friends. So yeah, it's amazing, great. And of course, for all the people who have not yet subscribed to VR365, please do so now, because it's an amazing channel, and you will see Anthony talk about all the latest in VR. So please, if you don't know that gentleman that just talked, please go and find his channel, VR365. In my opinion, is one of the best about VR on YouTube, and you should absolutely subscribe to him now. Now, did I plug you in a nice way here or what?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, it was really nice. Yeah, that's good.
I'm going to record that.
Yeah, please do that. Yeah, okay. So for me, I also did something about VR, of course. So I did play Jurassic World Aftermath. We're going to talk about this in a moment. And I streamed it here on the channel live. Then I played more Medal of Honor, getting really deep into it now. And honestly speaking, enjoying it a lot. And then also I'm now starting with more content for the Quest 2. And I'm like at the moment reviewing all the different head straps. There's so many like options, right? The Elite strap with battery. You can also use the deluxe audio strap from HTC. And there's going to be a video. Yeah, all that stuff I did. So yeah, I'm very busy here on MRTV, and of course, this is like the climax every week. This podcast, even though it's just the second time that we do that. All right, cool. So we know what we're up to, and now before we get into virtual desktop and before we get into the main topic about Facebook being so dominant in the VR space, we're first going to talk a bit about the latest stuff. Right? Like, first we're going to talk about Jurassic World Aftermath, then about Medal of Honor, and then we go to the main topic, Guy. So even if right now you cannot join this discussion so much, for sure we will talk a lot very soon. Yeah. So, okay, let's start with Jurassic World Aftermath. It's a Quest-only game, so all the people who got a Rift, for example, or a PC VR headset, they can play it. Only the Quest people can play it, and well, that's something that we're going to see more and more, right? Like the Rift S basically is dead. That's what we talked about in the first episode, and is more about the Quest now. So, Tony, I played it. You didn't play it, but do you have any thoughts about it from everything that you gathered from the reviews or from the videos that you saw from other people, or what is your feeling towards the game?
Well, it's definitely one of my most wanted. Like, I really wanted to play this game, and my plan for this week, when I found out that it was coming out, that's another thing. Like, I don't know about the marketing strategy. I guess maybe we could talk about it later with Facebook, but their marketing strategy with a lot of these games is interesting to me, because we knew about Jurassic World Aftermath. We knew about it, but you don't get any kind of a release date, and then you find out and, oh, it's coming out tomorrow, which is like a surprise sneak attack kind of a thing. And there's a strategy to doing that, because you do that and people are like, oh, boom, it's out. This is awesome. But there's also a strategy of like maybe having a trailer a couple of weeks in advance and saying, hey, this game is coming out on December 17th. And then everybody's kind of like, ooh, Jurassic Park is coming out on December 17th. You know, so it's kind of interesting they do these sneak attack things, but definitely one of my most wanted games to try. But I've got a problem. And this goes back to Facebook. It's like I've got these two different accounts, and I wanted to buy Jurassic World Aftermath in one of my particular accounts, and I ran into all these issues today, and so I couldn't buy it. It's a long story,
What
but
kind of
it's
issue?
just well, so the thing is, when I first got my Oculus Quest 2, I tried to connect one of my Oculus accounts to it, and then obviously it wants to link to a Facebook account. So I put my VR Game Rankings account on there, and I connected it to my personal Facebook account. And so I'm playing games from my VR Game Rankings account. Everything's great. But I had a bunch of Oculus Quest games that were on this other account, my VR, the VR Roundtable account, and I wanted to switch to that one. So I factory reset my Quest and was trying to put the VR Roundtable account on there, and then it also wants to link to a Facebook account. And this was like the first day that I got the Quest, and this was like the launch day, and I just was like, I'll just use the same account. Maybe it'll work. I don't know. So I used my same exact Facebook account, and it worked. And so now I'm in VR Roundtable with my single Facebook account, and I'm able to play games. Everything's great. Now, somehow though, the other account is like in a limbo. It's not like connected to any. It's just a bunch of drama. You know, this is this modern reality that we're dealing with now. And if it was Nintendo, if it was Sony, if it was Microsoft, yeah, they all have accounts, but they're not like connected to this other thing. That's where I wasn't really so much into the privacy aspect of it, but it's like, it's just so complicated now. You know, I miss the easier days of gaming. You just play, like, there's all these, like, Ubisoft has their own store and this place has their own store. And, oh, are you logged into Rockstar Games and you're logged into this?
I also hate that. It sucks.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. When we were young, we had this game console, and then we just put in the cassette, and it was amazing. And now
It was a lot less friction. back then,
it was really good. I really enjoyed that with the Sega Master System and the Super Nintendo. And you hate this. It was so fun. And you had to blow sometimes into the thing to make it work, but it was enjoyable. Yeah. Okay. Got it. So in the end, you didn't buy it. Are you still?
I want to buy it.
You want to buy
I want to buy
okay.
it. I can't buy it right now.
Yeah,
Technically, I can't.
That is crazy, though. That is really crazy. Yeah, so then probably I can tell you about my feelings about this game. So I was really looking forward to it because I'm a big Jurassic Park fan, right? It's a cool franchise, and it seemed like they will give you that feeling of horror, right? You are out there without a gun, anything, and you have to hide in the lockers, and you have to make the dinosaur go away and distract the dinosaur, and all these kinds of things. And for that thing, I think they have succeeded in doing that because they really make this kind of atmosphere where you are absolutely afraid of this dinosaur. You don't have any weapon. You have basically nothing. The only thing that you have is like some kind of remote control where you can remotely activate some loudspeakers to kind of distract the dinosaurs, which is cool, and it works well. And then you wait it out, you wait until the dinosaur goes away, and then you just follow the place where you have to go with that compass that you have on the other hand, and that works really well. Also, the graphic style is beautiful, this kind of cel-shaded design. So not realistic, but very clearly it's like some kind of toon shading. And yeah, if you like that, you will love that kind of graphics. And if you just are open to that, if you don't mean like, okay, everything has to look like realistic, it's very enjoyable. And I very much enjoyed that graphic style. I think they've done a great job on that. Also, I think they've done a great job on the audio, on the sounds, because you rely very much on sound. You have to listen, where is the dinosaur like walking? You can hear the steps. They have very atmospheric music around that, and wow, that is super, super nice. But, and for me, that's quite a big but, for me it was not so enjoyable because I found it kind of repetitive. Like, I hate it if I have to backtrack. And I was eaten so many times by that damn dinosaur, and then it put me like to the very beginning of that certain level, and I had to do it all over again. And I'm okay. I'm not a patient guy. Tony, I'm not sure. How are you? Are you a patient guy? Is it okay for you if you're eating all the time and you have to start again, like from 5 minutes ago? Is that something that you can accept?
I'm patient for a while, but yeah, after a while you lose me on it. Like I'm like, okay, I get this and I got to learn it, but like if a couple hours later it's if it's my fault, I can deal with it.
Okay. Okay, right. Yeah. It was definitely my fault because of course you first have to learn how to distract the dinosaur and then you get a hang of it. And then it's cool. It absolutely has its moments, but yeah, it is kind of like repetitive, I think, in my personal opinion. And also later in the game, there's some kind of inconsistencies which are not logical. So then after the first level is done, the first level is all about like hiding in lockers and letting the dinosaur go somewhere else and distracting him. The second level is more about you are in the dark and you have like a flashlight, and there is some other kind of dinosaur which is going to spit some stuff into your face. And yeah, if it makes a sound, you have like a few seconds to find it and to scare it away with your torch. But if you don't, then you're going to get like sprayed with that goo. Yeah. And and then you have to find some water to wash it away. And it sounds cool, but it's like super frustrating because even when you're facing the wall and actually there's no way the dinosaur could spray that goo into your face, it's still going to happen. And it's some kind of inconsistencies that I found really strange and like it's like super annoying for me as not such a patient guy to have to do this over and over and over again until you get it completely right, and then you will advance to the new level. Yeah. So, but I must say that honestly, I'm not the guy to play these kind of games where you have to sneak around. I'm more like the Medal of Honor guy, where you have the direct action and then it's better. Are you what kind of guy are you, Tony?
I can do the stealth stuff, and sometimes the stealth games in VR actually can work pretty well. There's a number of different games that have tried stealth, like Espire One and a few that I'm forgetting right now. But I mean, it's not one of my favorite genres, but I can get into it. But I know what you're talking about. It's like checkpointing. Sometimes the checkpointing is so bad it sends you all the way back, and it just becomes tiresome. And
Exactly.
then also you can get into this loop where you keep dying for a certain reason that you feel isn't completely justified. And, these are problems that we have with games. So sometimes, in your opinion, though, would you say, like, if somebody came to you and said, Sebastian, I like Jurassic World, I like Jurassic Park, I got a Quest, should I buy this? What would you tell the guy?
I would tell them it really depends on what you enjoy in a game. If you are out for action, my picture is gone now. That's okay. I'll fix it in a moment. If you're out for action, then I think that is not the right game for you. If you want this kind of action where you have like a gun or something, then this is not good for you. But if you are more like the guy who likes Alien Isolation, for example, this kind of game where it's about sneaking, it's about these tense moments, it's about the atmosphere, then probably you're going to enjoy it quite a bit because it does have these kind of aspects to it, right? So yeah, so this is pretty cool. So it really depends on you. Are you the guy who likes this kind of stealth action and the atmosphere? They have captured it really well. Are you a fan of Jurassic Park? Yes. But I'm a fan of Jurassic Park, and for me, it was like an okay experience that I personally didn't experience so much. So for me, it's not a must-buy, but if you're into games where you sneak around, then this might be for you absolutely. So Guy, what kind of games do you like, actually? What is your VR game that you enjoy to play?
Well, I haven't played much VR games in the last 2 years, honestly, but I like RPGs.
Okay.
This past week I've been playing Cyberpunk a little bit, so
yeah.
and I love it. It's a great game.
Okay.
What are you playing it on?
On PC.
PC, yeah.
Yeah, it runs well. At least, I mean, there's a few bugs here and there, but I think it's a very, very well made game, at least from the PC side.
Right. Yeah, I think I've heard so many good things about the game, and I didn't have time to play it because I'm always in VR. Tony, did you have time to play the game?
Cyberpunk?
Yeah, right.
Are we? No, I haven't. I mean, I've been following all the stories about it, of course, and like watching all the crazy videos and clips. It looks like the dream of all dreams. Like that world that they've created is incredible, but they've got a lot of problems, But it's so ambitious, so incredibly ambitious. I'm sure that all the developers at like Rockstar North and the developers at Bethesda Game Studios, so like the Fallout, Skyrim, and Grand Theft Auto people, they understand how freaking ambitious something like Cyberpunk is one of these games where I probably won't get to it for a couple of years, and by that time it'll finally be working right. So sometimes it's good to be late to the party.
Right. So, okay, cool. So, Aftermath, a game that probably all the people who love Alien Isolation, they will enjoy. In VR, it's cool to see the dinosaurs. Very cool, beautiful graphics, great sound. It does have its fantastic moments. It's a bit on the short side. Yeah, so...
Yeah, what do you think about that? The fact that it's like 2 to 3 hours, and it's here in the USA, it's $25.
Right. Here in Europe, it's like 21 euros. Yeah, I think it is not so cheap, but I believe that, if you're into this kind of games, then it's all right. So there's going to be a second part, right? Then it's going to be the same price. So if you think about overall, it's probably going to be like $50 overall. Yeah, it is a bit on the pricey side. And it's probably a smart thing to to make this kind of a 1 part and 2 parts, right? If they had the whole game already, first of all they would have to wait longer to push it out, and then it would cost directly $50. So it's a smart move actually to make it like $20, and then just half of the experience, and then the second half is going to be another $25. So overall it's $50. Smart move. I wouldn't buy it, honestly speaking, but it's because I'm not the sneaking stealth guy. I'm the Medal of Honor guy. The action, the direct gratification guy. So yeah, well, it's really up to everyone. Right. Have to think about it. Okay, that's the topic. That's Aftermath. Now let's talk a moment again about Medal of Honor. So now the reviews are getting better now on Steam. Probably you've seen that people are changing their reviews because, after 30 minutes, the first 30 minutes are really a tutorial, right? They're trying to hold the people's hands who are the first time in VR. It's like very short missions. You're shooting one time and it's over, right? But then later, it picks up so much. I had such an amazing time. It's bringing you to so many different areas. You are on that Black Forest Express, a train. Then you are on that airplane, on that fighter plane. Then you are on that submarine. It's pretty amazing. And for me, I think it's a really cool popcorn movie experience where you're actually in the thing and really enjoying it. But how about you, Tony? You've played it now a bit longer. Did you also change your opinion about the game?
Yeah, the number one thing I would say about Medal of Honor is that the hate went too far. All the people hating on the game, they went too far on it, and right. I think they judged it too quickly, and probably a lot of it is the 2-hour return policy that a lot of these services have, where you can basically play it for almost 2 hours and you could possibly refund it right before, and a lot of people, they're paying $60 and they're like, well, if I'm not blown away, man, I'm getting my money back. And so they play an hour and 40 minutes and they don't like it. But had they stuck with it and they got to hour 5 and hour 6, but it also depends on this. Are you a multiplayer only guy? Because there's probably some people that bought it just for multiplayer only. I haven't even tried the multiplayer yet.
Same here.
But I'm a single player guy. I love single player. Take me through a 12, 11, 9-hour story. That's pretty damn good. I'm happy with that. But some people multiplayer only, and so for them, I could see them being upset as well. But yeah, the more that I play this game, the more the more I realize, actually, I want to make an apology, because on our remember the last episode of this show, I was talking about the B team and the C team. I was talking about Respawn Entertainment. You know, they've got an A team, a B team, and a C team. And I was like, yeah, they probably put the C team on this game, and it was kind of like an afterthought, and they didn't have their best programmers and all of that. And I was basically talking out of my you-know-what, because the more that I played this game, the more I realized I needed to slap myself, because they had some talented people working on this game. I will tell you that the interiors of a lot of these rooms, the detail in just little things that are on tables, just fabrics, all kinds of little things. It's a very detailed environment, even though like our headsets aren't maybe the best resolution and stuff. Like maybe we can't really appreciate what's going on here as much as we'd like to, but incredibly detailed. The human characters that are standing in front of you, and you're standing like you're in an elevator with them, and they're standing right in front of you, and it seems like you've got two human individuals that are standing right there. I was really impressed too with the hair of that one guy.
The hair is good. Yeah, the hair is great.
Yeah, the hair. I was like, wow, they're doing hair pretty good now. And I'm right here by this. I'm like, the dude is right next to me. I feel like I can grab his shoulder and say, hey, man. And the story, there's a story going on here, a single player story. Honestly, a lot of times I think stories are overrated for the most part. And like, if I want a story, I'll go to Redbox and rent a freaking Blu-ray movie if I want a story. I don't go to video games for stories. But the story is relatively decent that I'm going through. Like they give you some emotional attachments to some of the people, and so you kind of develop this camaraderie with this group, and you're like moving through this story. I think it's pretty decent, but people have incredibly high expectations, and I can see how a lot of those expectations may have fell short in certain ways.
Right, especially if you're just looking at the first half hour or like 1 hour, because then you only see that tutorial, and people who are into VR will think like, hey, okay, this is so boring. What's going on? Why don't you directly let the atomic bomb explode directly in the first 5 minutes, as we're like used to by all these blockbusters? And then they think like, oh, this sucks. But really, for all the people who are watching this, play longer, play 2 hours, play 3 hours. It's getting so good. And somebody in the chat, I think it was Attack, just said, okay, I'm going to complete it anyways. It's weirdly addictive. And that's what I also found. I was like streaming it on my German channel. I was streaming it here on the English channel. And I simply couldn't stop to play. I always wanted to find out, hey, what's that next level? Because they're putting you into so many different interesting scenarios, right? On the tank, in the train, into the Gestapo headquarters, and so on and so forth. And you really feel like you want to keep on playing. It's weirdly addictive. And I've also seen that with my fellow other streamers who are streaming the game. They say, okay, I'm going to stream this for an hour, and then they're streaming like for 3-4 hours because it is so good. It's going to suck you in. Unfortunately, a bit too late, probably for lots of people. They should suck you in directly in the first 30 minutes, and that's probably what Respawn didn't do well enough. But overall, guys, give this another chance. Look at this longer. This is actually an amazing game that's going to suck you in a lot. And I haven't even tried the multiplayer game, the multiplayer aspect. Probably that is pretty amazing too. So, Guy,
hey, Sebastian.
Yeah, okay.
Can I complain about one thing?
You can
about
always,
the game?
man.
It just and I want to ask you if you notice this as well. Like,
Okay.
I like the game overall. It's not perfect, but there's enough good stuff there. And it's not like we're showered with AAA games every week.
Exactly.
We don't get that many. So it's like you can't be that stingy about it. But the one thing that I don't like about it is there are certain parts of the game where, you're shooting the bad guys and all of that, and you keep getting killed. And what the game kind of turns into is like, grab a syringe, stab yourself. Grab a syringe, stab yourself. Shoot a couple guys. Grab a syringe, stab yourself. Find a syringe real quick. You know what I mean?
I know you
Like,
mean
did
it's
it
a bit
ever
too it's a bit too simple. You mean like
like it's just hectic. It's like I got to do this. No, I got to grab this gun, and then I got to switch.
but man,
this
you
gun
know
and
what?
then-
Like war is damn hectic.
I guess so.
Yeah,
I guess
right. It's
so.
like wow, it's like a very stressful situation, and I think they did catch it. Like overall, for me, when I played this, it just feels like a popcorn movie, like it's a blockbuster movie. It's super enjoyable when you're in it, and then it does have some plot holes. Like you cannot like touch anything. You cannot like in Alex, where you can touch everything. But overall, it's a really enjoyable experience, and the presentation is just like wow, it's pretty amazing. And I played it both on the Quest 2 and on the G2, and it's just like wow, it's pretty cool. So Guy, you also played it for like 30 minutes. What was your first impression overall?
I think there were some very neat things, like the introduction with the doctor, where you go over the settings and then you have to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Right.
I think that was kind of a neat approach to, introduction to the game. I'm super nitpicky about stuff like, especially UIs. So whenever like a game like that with that kind of budget, like does a very, very basic pointer UI like that, and that just looks awful in my opinion. I'm just like, ugh, this could be so much better.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
In the terms of gameplay, it looked very polished and very well done. Even though, like a couple people mentioned, they kind of have the gameplay mechanics of older games, like 3-year-old or 4-year-old games, right? But I think they already fixed that in the patch that came out. So
right, exactly. So there's a patch out now for all the people who now want like smooth smooth turning and something like this.
Yeah.
Right. They have listened to the community. So yeah, guys, give this game another chance. This is what I tell you here. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and it's not as bad as the first reviews. They are really unfair. And it was just like you said, Tony, it was over the top, the hate. It was not justified. Absolutely not. And I think it's a really amazing, fun game to play. Okay, cool. So we got the current topics out of the way. Now, let's get to the big topic that we are waiting for. And first of all, Guy, I want to learn a bit more about your background, how you got to making virtual desktop. So tell us a bit more. How did you have the idea to make virtual desktop, like this app where you can see your virtual desktop where you can see your computer desktop in virtual reality? How did everything start? Your origin story.
So in 2014, when the DK1 it came out, I didn't really pay attention to that. It's when Facebook decided to buy Oculus that I kind of got curious about, okay, it's not a gimmick, it's actually a real thing. So I started, reading about it and learning about it, and it looked really cool. And then I saw some people using it where they had to launch a game, put the headset on, and then when the experience was over, they had to take off the headset, then go on their computer, launch the game. I was like, why, this is horrible workflow. It should be better. Why can't you see your computer, since it's plugged into your computer? Why can't you see your desktop and use it? And then I realized, okay, it's just because only experiences that use the Oculus SDK and all that can render to the scene. So I thought, I could probably make something that lets you use your computer. And a couple people had that idea too, and some people tried, and the problem at the time was that the most popular OS was Windows 7, right? Windows 8 just came out. It was super unpopular. Nobody liked it. But I read about a cool new feature they had in Windows 8, which lets you capture your desktop very efficiently compared to what Windows 7 had. So I said, I'll give this API a try, and I'll try it. And it turned out that it worked really, really well for VR, because I could just copy the desktop in GPU memory and into the headset, project it on a sphere, and it didn't use any resources. Your computer was free to do anything. So you could play regular video games, you could watch movies, you can do anything you want. So that's how I got started into the app. And yeah.
When was that? That was 2015?
2014.
2014. Okay, quite. Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's
the beginning, yeah.
The very beginning of the second phase of VR. Cool. Great. And before that, you were a programmer? Just
right.
Working?
So I was working in the game industry as a tools programmer. So I would work for different companies, and I build the tools to help make the game, like build the level editors, the sound tools, or asset management, texture compression, that kind of stuff. So I've never really had any experience in developing games, like actual games. So this was all new to me. It's just something that I learned on my own. So
okay, cool. So then you thought like, wow, this VR is pretty cool, and there's some substance behind it because Facebook is buying Oculus. This is serious stuff.
Right.
And then you simply you looked into it and thought, wow, this is a thing that could work. So did you, which was your first VR headset, and what was your first VR experience like? And when did you get hooked to the whole thing?
So my first VR headset was with the Oculus DK1. I tried it at Stress Level Zero, the company who makes Boneworks, right? They had at the time they did. There's like, oh, if you guys live in the area and you want to stop by our studio to try the headset, just stop by. And I went, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I was blown away. I think it was the Italian. I forgot the name. The Tuscany demo, right? That was the first thing I tried. And I was like, "Well, this is really cool."
Perfect. Stress Level Zero, are they also in Canada, like you, or?
No, I was in California at the time.
Okay, right. Okay, right now you're in Vancouver, just to let everyone know.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Stress Level Zero. Yeah, Boneworks is amazing. I actually love that game. Cool. And then you tried it for the first time, and you thought, like, okay, this is great stuff.
Those,
yeah, exactly. You got to get one of those. Even though the DK1 was kind of like vomit-inducing, right? It was just like you could easily get sick of.
Yeah, a little bit. I had to buy it on eBay because they weren't selling it anymore. I made an order for the DK2, but it was taking a while. So I was too excited. So I said, okay, I'll go on eBay. I'll get a DK1, and I was very impressed. At the time, the screen door was really bad, right? And you couldn't move sideways, and it was kind of a subpar experience, but it was still very cool.
Right, exactly. That was really amazing. And then you started to work on that virtual desktop. And at what time did you actually sell it? Did you sell it first on Steam, or did you sell it directly on Oculus? And tell us a bit more about this part. And when did you think like, okay, wow, this could be like my main job, right? It is your main job right now, obviously, right?
Yep.
But of course, but when did you make this transition from being that game tool editor to becoming like a full virtual desktop guy? And how did you feel about this decision to say, oh, you know what, I'm going full-time into VR? It's going to be an amazing decision.
Right. So when I was working on this initially, I was working part-time and doing stuff for Disney. So I released it for free on the Oculus Share system, right? They had.
I can remember.
So yeah, they had forums, and anyway, lots of people were trying demos. So, and it became very, very popular. Then lots of people like to use the app to switch between experiences and have it running always in the background, And then when they announced the Oculus CV1, it was released in March 2016, right? So I put my app on Steam, and I made it available there. And I continued working. I was working at 2K in San Francisco at the time. So I was still working full time, and this was just like a side thing that I did like evening and weekends. I basically had no life. So I just worked on this part time and kept iterating on it.
Okay.
And then I think it was in 2017. Yeah, 2017, I decided, okay, I want to do this full time. The sales were pretty good, so I could commit to that full time. And so I moved back to Canada. Since I'm Canadian, so I moved back to Canada, started my business here, and now I've been doing this full time for 3 years now.
Wow, super exciting. And are you happy that you made this decision to do this full time?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, good
Best decision ever.
Wow,
especially
amazing.
Considering the pandemic now that everybody has to stay home. Like
Oh, yeah.
I was already home
Yeah,
and
that's
working
okay.
home. So I was like, oh, I
Okay.
was lucky there.
Wow, yeah, very interesting. Cool. So virtual desktop, this amazing app where you can see your desktop in the Rift, and then also on Steam VR, right? You have it on both platforms.
Yep.
And you make a living out of it. That's amazing, man. Really happy for you because it's an amazing app. And then the Quest 2 was announced, and probably you directly thought, okay, cool. Probably I could get this for the Quest 2 as well, right? What was your thinking, and did it work directly? Tell us a bit more about the Quest time.
Yeah, so when I moved to Canada and started working full time, I started working on the mobile version of my app. So at the time it was for Oculus Go and Gear VR, right? So I started work on that, and it's very different tech because it's not connected via HDMI or DisplayPort, right? It's streaming wirelessly, so I have to compress the desktop to video, stream it, and then decompress it on the headset. And so I have two apps, one running on the PC, one running in VR. So I started working on that, and I released it a year later, November 2018, I think. So, and it worked well for Oculus Go. It was very popular. It's been the top selling app, I think, on Oculus Go since it launched.
Cool.
So, and the thing is that developers got early units of the Quest, the Santa Cruz at the time, right? So I already had the Quest in mind, and essentially worked on having it release for the Quest launched, a year later. So.
Great.
So very happy when it released for the Quest, because then you have two controllers. You can, and the base feature of the app, which is to access your computer, was the same as the Go, right? Almost the same app. Basically, it was the same binary that I had for both at the time. And then that's when I decided, lots of people for the Go and Gear VR, they always ask me, like the most requested thing I had was, can you stream VR games? And I always had to say, no, you can't. It's just your desktop. But the thing is, lots of people were right. You're already connected to the computer. The latency is very low. You can play regular games. Why not stream VR games? And I always thought, I could give it a try, right? So I worked on this in the background and didn't really tell anyone. And then when the Quest came out a few weeks after, I decided, okay, let me just put that in, and then I'll let people discover it. And then I didn't publicize it. I didn't announce it. I just put it in.
That's amazing, man. I wonder, the first guy who found out about this, who just tried to start Steam VR, like, wow, this works. This must have been incredible.
And the nice thing is that it's kind of automatic, right? So you're just connected to the computer, and then you just launch Steam VR, and it just worked, right?
Wow.
And the nice thing is that Steam VR has an API to create a driver for any headsets, right? Because Steam VR supports any headsets that you want, right? So you can write a driver for a headset, and that's how Virtual Desktop worked initially. It was a custom driver for Steam VR that made it think that you had a headset connected, and then it sent the image wirelessly over to the Quest. So, and that worked well, but there were a lot of compatibility issues with that, because lots of games that ran, if they ran against OpenVR, they assumed that you have a Vive, right? Most games were made for either Rift or Vive. So it says, if you're not running against the Oculus SDK, you must have a Vive. So it shows Vive ones, and then the controls didn't work very well because it assumes you had a touchpad. So there were a lot of compatibility issues. So I think it was a year ago, I switched to a different approach where I essentially rewrote the entire Oculus runtime, kind of like what Revive does. And so that way I'm able to fake Rift being connected to the computer, even though there's none. And that way people can play their Rift games, but also Steam VR games. So they can play all their games, and there's no input mismatch. So.
Wow, that's just so amazing. But I'm just wondering, how can you make that? I mean, how can you just make the whole Oculus runtime? You must completely understand every single line of code of that Oculus software. And how do you do that? Is there any way that you could reverse engineer it? Could you look into the code? How can you just make the Oculus runtime by yourself, Guy? How is it possible?
I didn't replicate the entire runtime, mostly the important parts, but the thing is, it's a black box. There's no source code for it. There's just an API, right? Okay. So it's just, and basically I have to kind of guess what they're doing and try to do, and still, even today, even a few weeks ago, I realized, I figured out how it actually works under the real runtime, and then I implement it correctly on my side. So it's a lot of guesswork. Try this, doesn't work, try again, try something else. So it's a lot of trial and error.
Well, that is really unbelievable. And I can just tell you, you must be, and you are, an unbelievable programmer. So actually, I'm also a programmer from my actual job before YouTube. But as you can tell, I'm obviously not such a good programmer, so that's why I'm doing YouTube. But you, man, you are really like an amazing programmer to be able to rework that Oculus runtime to make it work as good as it does. That's amazing, man, and really congratulations to that. So how was you feeling when for the first time you were in your Oculus Go or in your Quest and actually it did work? Like, wow, you could play Steam VR games and you felt like, damn, this is amazing. I have something here on my hands which people will love and want. How was it feeling? And how long ago was that?
It was not instant like that. It was more like this doesn't work, and then try again, try different things until it kind of worked, and then the latency was horrible, or I had some glitches. So it was kind of a work in progress, really. I think when I initially released it on Quest and I didn't announce it, it wasn't really that great, right? So the first initial impressions were that people thought there was a lot of controller latency and it didn't feel right. So I had to do a lot of polish until I was happy with that. I think now what I have today, I think I'm pretty happy with it because it's really hard to notice the latency. Since I don't have access to space warp on the Rift, right? That's something that helps the PC runtime to essentially generate frames if your computer is not fast enough, right? So I'm those parts, it's out of my wheelhouse completely. I wouldn't be able to re-implement something like that, or it would take me months if I tried. So I kind of have to deal with that differently. I can do time warp on the Quest side, but as far as positional stutters and all that, I can't mitigate that. So it's not perfect still. It could be improved, but.
Okay. All right. Got it. But great that it works anyways. And I just saw my picture's gone away, but again, that doesn't matter so much. Okay, so at one point you found out that it does work. And so you have improved it. And at one point it was really good, and it was then in the software, and people could buy your app from the normal Quest store, and then the word spread, of course, right? That hey, you can actually play the Steam VR games with this app. This app is good. Go buy it, and then lots of people bought it, and of course, that is an amazing thing to happen. But then it seems like Facebook also found out that you can stream VR games, like PC VR games, and it seems like they were not happy about it. And how did they contact you, or did they directly close down the whole app? How did that happen? And how did they approach you? Tell us a bit more about that story.
Right. So basically, it started spreading online that you could actually stream VR games from your computer with virtual desktop and all that. And then, Oculus, a few days later, they called me and said, you have to remove the feature from the store because it's not something that we can guarantee a good experience. So you have to remove the feature, otherwise we're going to pull your app from the store.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, okay. And the sales on Quest were at the time about 50% of my income, right? So if I decided to leave it there and be pulled from the store, then it'd be half of your income gone, right? So I didn't really have a choice. So that's why I decided to remove the feature as they asked, but I made a patch available on SideQuest so that people could still access the feature from the app. So they have to buy the app on the Oculus Quest store and then apply the patch from SideQuest, which is still the case today. People have to go through those hoops to get the feature, which I think is unfortunate because it works really well for the majority of people. So.
Exactly. I think, it works perfectly. For me, it works really perfectly, and I'm impressed how well that works. And I think it's so sad that people have to jump through this hoop in order to make your virtual desktop, run as good as it does with that wireless feature, because that hoop is quite a hoop to jump through, right? I mean,
it's hard for a lot of people. It's easy for tech folks or people who have been in VR for years, or people who know how to know their way around with computers. But for the average users out there, you have to install ADB drivers, you have to install another app. It's very, very complicated for the majority of people.
Exactly. You have to make this organization and probably put in your credit card details to make this happen. And it's getting more and more complicated to make it happen. And so that is really a sad story, I think. And we're going to get to the bad part of Facebook in a moment. So that's really unfortunate and not so nice that people have to jump through this hoop. So they called you and said, hey, it's not good enough. Or wow, okay. All right, got it. And then you had to comply, or 50% of your income would be gone. Probably right now, is it probably even more
95%.
Okay. So now it's wow, your money comes from the Oculus store. Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because they're so dominating. Facebook is so dominating the space right now. And here we arrived at the main topic of today's podcast, the Facebook dominance. So right now, honestly speaking, let's just say it as it is. Facebook is dominating our industry, right? The industry that we love, virtual reality. So they have put so much money into it. Of course, right? That's also a great thing. They've invested so much money into it. They have made all the games that we love. Like they are the company who's really driving that space, right? With all the games and with the great hardware, like the Quest 2, it is pretty amazing. If you just look at the hardware, right? It's like a marvel, like $299 with that XR2 chipset. It's very cheap. It is beautiful. It is even comfortable, I think. It is like really, truly amazing. So it is. They have done a lot of good for VR, I would say, right? Tony, would you agree with that?
Yeah. It's a conundrum because Facebook is the best thing that has ever happened to VR and the worst thing that has ever happened to VR. So it's both simultaneously, and still to this day is both.
Okay, yeah, that is really interesting point. And Guy, what are your thoughts about Facebook like dominating the space as they do right now? Do you think it's more good, like you sold like lots of your virtual desktop also thanks to them pushing it out like they do, right? Or is it more like, okay, it's also like lots of bad sides for the industry that they're dominating like they're dominating right now? What are your thoughts?
Well, I have to say, if Oculus wasn't there, I wouldn't be here, right? So I wouldn't, being able to work on this, I would still be working in the game industry probably. So it's because of those early engineers and Palmer Luckey and all those folks who created the headset that I'm able to have my business today. So I think they're doing a lot of good. They're doing a lot of research, and people work really hard, and they're doing really awesome things. The downside is that they're a bit anti-competitive when it comes to their developers, where like for me or for Darshan from Bigscreen, where they will essentially try to kill my app. And that's unfortunate. Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. They seem to help game developers, and they tell you to make games, but they don't really like the fact that we're making apps, or if they do, it's mostly to kind of know what's working and what doesn't so that they can develop it themselves, right? So when I showed that you could actually stream VR games on the Quest, they probably were working on the same thing, but then they decided, oh no, remove the feature, most likely because they were working on the same thing, right? They were working on Oculus Link, which they announced 5 months later. So it's just unfortunate that they took this approach of trying to kill developers and copy what they're doing and put them in.
Oh, now we have. Are you there again? Okay, just lost you. Lost you for a moment. Yeah, you're right. So, like in the case of like your app, Guy, virtual desktop, like even the same name. Actually, if you are in a Rift, right, there's also a virtual desktop which is exactly the same name like your app, and probably people will even think that this is yours.
Right. So when I released my app in 2016, right, it was only on Steam. And then I think later in September, I released it on the Rift store because they had a Windows 7 requirement at the time and I didn't support it. So anyway, now it does work on Windows 7. But essentially what happened is that they tried to acquire me. I met with them and they were, trying to have me work for them. And what they offered wasn't really worth what the app was worth at the time anyway. So I said, no, I'll continue to work on my own. But they duplicated the functionality, and then they introduced Oculus Dash and Oculus Desktop right a year later. And they put that on as part of the Rift platform. At the time, it was called Oculus Desktop, and I was fine. I can compete with them. I got a bunch of features they don't have. I can do positional audio. I can do 180, 360 videos. I had a bunch of features that they didn't have, so I was fine. I'll compete with them. But then at some point, they renamed their Oculus Desktop. They called it Virtual Desktop in their user interface.
Your name.
And I was like, yeah, the name of my app.
What the heck?
come on, guys, like I'm trying to sell apps and then it just confuses people. And even today, I get people asking me or telling me about bugs they have, but they're talking about Oculus desktop, not my app. And then it's a support nightmare because then people are wondering which one is which. It's like, come on. And so I had to pull I recently, like a few weeks ago, I had to pull my app from the Rift store. It's not there anymore.
What?
Because, well, it's because of the cross-buy thing. Like my app wasn't cross-buy because they're very different between the mobile and the PC version. And it's not very clear on the Rift store that you're buying an app for Rift. So lots of people, like when the Quest 2 came out, my sales spiked on the Rift store. I was like, oh, this is weird. And then I just got bombarded with 1-star reviews. Why this doesn't work on my Quest? I was like, no, this is not for Quest.
Different. Right.
And then I was like, I had like a 90% refund rate, right? It was horrible. And I got bombarded with 1-star reviews. So I just decided I'll just pull the app from the store because this is just too confusing for users. Just, go buy it on Steam if you want it. It's available there. So
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And so I think it's unfortunate that they're taking that approach, essentially trying to kill my app, and they kind of did on the PC side with the Rift version, and now on the mobile version, well, it's similar. I mean, they released Oculus Link, which I understand that's something they want to release, but let me compete fairly. Let me have my app on the store, and then people can use whichever they prefer, right?
Right, that makes sense. But you know what, Guy, I still want to go down to that Facebook simply naming their app just like yours. So honestly, if I'm just hearing this, it sounds like so wrong. Isn't there anything that you could do about this? Isn't there some kind of, I don't know, some trademark, or like you used it first and now you could, if you wanted to sue them, probably you don't want to go into that kind of mess, or isn't there anything? This seems just so wrong.
Is do I want to hire a bunch of lawyers
right.
to Facebook? Right.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not a good investment, right?
Okay.
Like, there's nothing I can do. I'm just one guy. Well, I have a few people helping me, but it's a small team. So it's not something I really want to spend time on. I just want to develop cool things that people want. Just let me develop my things and stop, messing around with my stuff. That's all.
Right.
And technically, if it's in their like UI system, like they probably can name anything they want in there because it's, you know what I mean? So I don't even know if legally you'd be able to go out to be able to get them on that, but it's neither here nor there. It doesn't matter.
Mm.
Yeah. But anyways, this sounds really not nice. Well, anyways, you made the decision not to work for them and do your own thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then just getting this kind of like a kick in the nuts, let's say it like this. It's like very disheartening. Also because actually you are like making their ecosystem more interesting. Like your work, you're putting in your work, and thanks to your work, people can enjoy something like playing PC wirelessly. So actually you are helping each other, right? And now
right.
It could be like a great kind of working together. And
Exactly.
I think also it is a very disheartening signal that Facebook is sending to people like you who are so good in developing and who want to like bring VR forward, like you or like Bigscreen. They're doing amazing things, right? Or the people who've done the Your fitness app, trying to innovate VR, which also helps Facebook. But then basically what we have to see here, Facebook is copying the stuff one-to-one and basically killing off like your work, like your app.
Right.
This is like what kind of signal does it send to developers like you? It's like a terrible signal, right? Either you become their employee and do the stuff for them, or you're getting like fucked.
Wait, one question for Guy though. Has Face, like, now that it's a couple of years later in all of this, why don't they come back to you and say, "Hey, let's work out a deal"? They haven't come. I mean, maybe you can't say that, but
I'm not interested anyway. Yeah. But yeah, no, because the thing is,
there's no money they could throw at you.
No, I mean, I'm doing just fine with the app sales right now, so it's not like. Maybe my wife would be happy, but no, honestly, the thing is, I'm very happy working on my own, being my own boss and deciding what features I work on. and really listening to customers. I have a feeling that if I worked for Facebook, I would be stuck there probably for 3 or 4 years, and then they would be choosing what I work on and all that. I wouldn't have power over the direction of the app and what features I want to work on. So, and also the tech that I can use, because Facebook uses different tech probably that I'm using. So I'm very happy where I am right now. So it's not something I'd be interested in. Anyway,
Right,
so.
right. Okay, that's good. So that's perfect. You can do your thing and just evolve your program how you want it to evolve. Perfect. But what do you think is going to happen next? So right now there's this kind of like a way through SideQuest to have the full functionality, right? But well, let me tell you what I think. In my personal opinion, they're going to shut SideQuest down, like the way that it is right now, that it's so easy. That's what I think could happen. And then they're going to have, obviously, their own version of PCVR streaming, which is going to build into the Quest. And yeah, then it's basically, there's no competition for you anymore, and it's over.
Right. Well, I have no idea what's going to happen with the new, they announced that they're going to have a new way to install apps that are not on the store and that don't go through the verification process, but I have no idea what's going to happen with virtual desktop in regards to that. I wish I could have the feature available in the store. That would be great. That would make it easier for users. And I don't know what's going to happen with SideQuest. I mean, at least from what I heard, that they're working together and all that. So I hope that SideQuest survives, because it's a great thing to be able to browse those games made by developers who were not able to be accepted on the store. There's some great stuff on SideQuest.
I totally agree. I think the whole SideQuest, it also gives so much value to the Quest, right? Being able to try out other things, to try out some things that didn't go to the store, right? All the hand tracking things, all these experimental things that we would never see if it wasn't for SideQuest. So I really also hope that it's going to stay alive. And I do think if they would totally shut it off, they would shoot into their own food, and right?
Totally.
It's like totally, it wouldn't make any sense at all. So yeah, hopefully this will stay there. But yeah, the next thing then, Facebook having their own version of the virtual streaming, and then it's going to be tough for you to compete, right? In this moment.
Oh yeah, I'm certainly aware that if they release like a wireless streaming feature that free, obviously, because it's included as part of it, like my sales will probably drop to something like 0, and that's understandable. And I understand that.
Right.
And I'm working on other things too, so
Okay.
I would understand if they did that, because that kind of thing should have been part of the platform initially. Same with my app on PC, right? The ability to see your computer in VR should have been part of it, but Oculus didn't see it at the time, right? So even before I released my app, I remember I interviewed at Facebook, and I was like telling them, I think it's really cool to be able to see your computer and all that, and they never hired me. So I said, okay, I'll continue working on my app on my own, right? So that's the thing, is that they sometimes don't see what's going to be popular, and then they let developers do it, and then they're like, oh, okay, that's popular, let's do it, let's put that in our platform.
Okay, I got it. Guy, I have one question for you about virtual desktop or something in general that interests me. Like, I really like the Quest. For sure, it's an amazing headset, but what I'm missing right now is that I could have, like, when I'm streaming, like the streaming functionality, like streaming to YouTube is not there by itself, right? Is that something that you could hack into it? I would totally pay for that.
Yes, technically that's something I could work on.
Please do that.
But the thing is, I could only do it for my app, right?
Right.
Because that's the scope of which I have as an app developer. I can only capture the image from what my app outputs. So it's probably better if you do PCVR streaming to just stream with OBS on your computer, I'd say, rather than streaming what you see on your Quest, because then you have streaming in both directions, and you're going to need a really good router if you want to do something like that.
Okay, got it. Yep.
Wait, speaking of routers, do you have any recommendations because a lot of people are wondering, like, is there a particular router, like if someone has a Quest 2 and they want to do the virtual desktop thing through SideQuest and all of that, is there anything to recommend there?
Personally, I recommend the Asus routers. They're pretty good. TP-Link has some good ones, but there are some issues with some firmwares right now with the Wi-Fi 6. So just don't use the router provided by your ISP, right? The one they give you for free. It's usually trash. So it's best to set that one up in bridge mode, right? So it just connects to the internet, and then you connect a real 5 gigahertz router to that from a reputable company like Asus or TP-Link or Netgear or something like that.
Right,
Okay.
right. And another feature request: would it be possible somehow to allow me to see like a web browser whenever I play Quest 2? Like I'm streaming to YouTube using some Chromecast, but I also want to have like the chat in the Quest 2. Is that something that you could make happen?
Well, I could technically in theory I could do it. It's just it would be streamed. It would be part of the video stream that you have for each eye, so the quality wouldn't be as great.
Okay.
If I were at Oculus, I would actually support having overlays.
Yeah, right.
Like we do on PC, right?
Exactly.
I would do that. It requires horsepower, which the Quest 2 has enough to do, so it should be able to do that. I wish that they allowed third-party developers like right, who had an overlay, right? They kind of hacked it in. But I wish they would allow developers to create those things. Maybe they will do that in the future. Maybe they will do like on Rift, where it's reserved to Oculus. Like Oculus doesn't have overlays even on Rift today. It's
Right.
only their Oculus desktop, which has the ability to do that. Steam VR, on the other hand, they had the ability to do overlays. So apps like OVR Toolkit, right? They can do that. So I'd say for now, I would recommend using something like OVR Toolkit today with Steam VR games,
Right.
and then you can have overlays. So that probably would be the best approach.
Yeah, well, for Steam VR games it works, but if I want to play Quest games and see the chat, it's going to be very tough.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not something that they have that Oculus has allowed to have third-party overlays.
Okay, good. Okay, but let's get back to the main topic. So we found out that it seems that Facebook is letting developers go wild, and then if they see something that works well, they're going to try to probably copy it one by one, and then try to get the competition away. I'm wondering about one thing: the business model that of the platform, the platforming business model of Rift and Oculus, that like getting 30% of the share of the money. That makes sense in general. That's what we know from Apple, for example, and Google, and they all do it. It makes sense. It's understandable, right? Like they built all the community, all the platform, all the hardware. It makes sense. But
I think it's a little high.
It's a bit high, yeah.
But because it depends all the developers will say that 30% is a bit high, but I think what Apple is doing, where they make it essentially much lower for the first million or something like that. Like,
okay.
I think that's a good approach because, essentially it's just a credit card processing thing, right? So
that makes sense.
And most credit cards charge 2%. So I think they could be charging 15-20%, and that would be enough. And like the Bigscreen guys, where they can't compete with Facebook because they have that 30 premium, right? So
yeah, that is the point, and let me help others to understand it better. So Bigscreen, it's a free app. It's amazing. You can watch like your content, your PC content, actually just like a virtual desktop, but you can also now watch movies. They have this kind of online virtual cinema experience where you can buy a ticket and then you can watch a movie, probably a recent movie or an older classic, which is nice. However, on the Quest, for example, they still have to pay 30% of what they make to Oculus. And that kind of kills their business model because Oculus is also offering some kind of similar service, right? Like you can also watch movies on the Quest 2, but they don't have to pay 30% to somebody else, right? So Bigscreen has no way of competing on price for the ticket price of that movie ticket. So basically, it's some kind of Oculus tax that everyone has to pay if they want.
But it's not everyone, because at Fandango have a special deal with Facebook where they don't have to pay that 30%.
Oh, really?
And so they're able to sell movies and rentals but they don't have to pay their 30% because Facebook wanted to have a big name like Fandango in their app stores, probably. So they negotiated a 0% tax.
So yeah, bad news for Bigscreen, who doesn't have that special deal, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what's called anti-competitive, right? So you can't just favor one company over another and do things like that. That's super unfair.
That's super unfair.
But what they could do, wait, can I ask you this though? So yeah, I mean, technically that is anti-competitive and all that, but let's say you have your own walled garden, right? And you have an app. Let's say Bigscreen was never around, and you have your own walled garden, and you have your own app inside that walled garden that basically does what Bigscreen does. And then a company like Bigscreen is like, hey, we want to get onto your platform. Can't you basically say, no, thanks, we don't need you? And wouldn't that be perfectly legal and basically fair because it's their walled garden? Like if you're Disneyland and like some outside taco stand wants to come into Disneyland could say, no, we're good. We got tacos here.
Right. I mean, they can in theory, but
in this scenario, Bigscreen was already there. So it's different. But I'm saying like in my little scenario, it would be okay. But in this scenario, Bigscreen was already there. So it's kind of like they changed the game in the middle of the game.
Right. But it's a problem not just in VR though. That's the same thing that happens with Apple and Netflix, right? So Netflix doesn't have to pay Apple for everything you watch, right? It's a free app. It doesn't cost anything. They don't have to pay Apple anything, right? So and it's a problem because then anybody who wants to compete there, and now you have like xCloud, Microsoft's gaming thing, where Apple asked them to have the game on the store, otherwise they have to pay 30% or whatever, which is kind of crazy because it's like giving preferential treatment to some companies or other. Like if it was a small,
it's your own walled garden though. It's your own walled garden.
Sure, but when they are monopolies like Apple and Android, right? That like iOS and Android, they're monopolies, and so I think that doing that kind of choice of choosing which one is which one is not, that's, I don't know. I think there should be regulations against that personally.
Yeah.
Right. We'll find out how this plays out, this whole story.
Yeah.
Definitely. By the way, if the Bigscreen guys are watching this, you're also very welcome to join one of our episodes here in the Next Dimension podcast and also talk about your perspective on the whole thing, about the whole 30% problem for you and how it's tough for you, dear Bigscreen, to stay in business with this, right? Especially since this is so dominating the Quest 2.
Yeah, I think it's fine for me, the 30%. I don't mind. It's sort of been paying on Steam, and it's
right.
So I'm technically fine with that. I think it would just be better for smaller developers to have like the first million or first few 100,000 that they make to not be subject to such a high tax. Steam did the opposite, where if your game sells more than, I don't know, I think it's 5 million, 10 million, then you pay a lower percentage after that. But essentially that's doing the opposite. It's not doing it. It's just helping the big studios, right, that are already making a lot of money on their games. So.
Right. Wow, that's so many things to think about, actually. Normally, we just enjoy the Quest 2 as a normal consumer, right? Oh, it's so cheap. But you should also really think about what does it mean to the industry. And also one interesting part is, it's because they, obviously make this cheaper than it is. They're subsidizing the Quest 2. It is super complicated for other hardware manufacturers to actually get into the market. Right? If, for example, HTC came out now with a standalone headset, which is amazing, but they put a $600 price tag on it because that's how they must price it in order to stay alive. Yeah, it's just impossible for them to get into the market in the first place, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know which headset manufacturer honestly has a chance to release something and be successful now. It's you think of HTC, you think of all those other companies, they're going to have to make money off the headset because they don't have a guaranteed store where they can make their money, right? So it's going to be very hard for anyone else to compete in that space.
Yeah, really. What do you think, Tony? Is there any who would have a chance to compete against the Quest 2? Is there any company that you could think of?
Yeah, there is. It's called Apple and Google. They're basically the only ones that could
Or
potentially do it.
Steam and Steam.
Apple, yeah, I mean, if
Valve.
Steam would want to do that, but I don't see Steam making a standalone. I seriously
There was
doubt.
Sony, but they kind of
Sony,
backed
yeah.
out, right?
Right, right. Yeah, who knows?
So one of the things we got to look at here is like you can consider the market cap of these companies. Facebook 787 billion. Okay, HTC 26 billion. And that's the difference. You got a tremendous amount of money. So the barrier to entry for any other manufacturer to try to get into the standalone game in North America, the barrier to entry ridiculous. Even for Apple, Google, Microsoft, even for the behemoths, the barrier to entry is going to be ridiculous because you've already got an entrenched player that is pot committed. They're all in. They've already paid $4 billion or whatever for Oculus. So they are all in on this thing. So they're not backing down. So for any other like for Sony, Google, even Apple to think, are we going to have a standalone product to compete with that? You're thinking you've got to go to war. You're going to take on such tremendous casualties just to try to get 50% of the market. Now, I think Apple probably will do this. And I think they're going to do it from more of a defensive standpoint, because if the next computing platform did turn out to be virtual reality, you've got to have a backup plan there. So I think Apple will actually pursue this.
But I don't think it's going to be virtual reality. I think for Apple, it's very clearly it's going to be augmented reality, AR, right? Since they have their AR software already, so they simply have to port it to this nice headset. I don't think they're going to go into like a VR thing like the Quest 2.
Well, the problem there, though, is when would an AR product be good enough where it could be mass market afford? I feel like AR is so far behind. Like we could be 8 years away from like a legitimate consumer AR product that is really like
Amazing.
a Quest version of AR. You know, that could be 8 years away. Can Apple afford to wait 8 years and let Facebook get more and more and more entrenched? The Quest 2 as a thing, there's going to be a Quest 3. There's going to be a Quest 4. There's going to be this is not going to stop. So any other company that feels like this could be a long-term threat, they're going to have to deal with this problem sooner or later.
Right, got it. Guy, now you really know about streaming. Streaming like the content. And now I would like to ask you about my thoughts about who could compete. In my opinion, I think a real competitor to the Quest 2 could be a device that streams Steam VR content from the cloud. You know, some kind of device that would stream all of your Steam VR games beautifully to your standalone headset, and the headset gets everything from your nice 5G connection, and well, all your Steam VR games, everything is being rendered not from your computer, but from that edge computer in the cloud. And you pay probably, I don't know, like a monthly fee of, I don't know, $20 to pay for these servers. And it's going to be our 5G streaming, wonderland. And yeah, then we already have the platform, because SteamVR is a great platform. Nobody has to redo their games. Everything is there already. And we simply stream the PC VR games onto our, let's say, Valve standalone headset. What do you think? Is that a future that is actually viable? And how far away would that future be in terms of technology?
Well, if it's already viable, I say yes, because people are actually doing that today.
Wow.
With
I was
Shadow,
right.
Well, that's the thing. It's not for everyone, though, because it depends how far you are from the data centers. Like Shadow has like some servers in France and I think in Germany.
Right.
If you're close by, the latency is pretty manageable. It's not too bad. But if you are further away, then the latency becomes a problem, because in VR you need very, very low latency to have a good experience. And some parts of the world don't have great internet either, like the US or Canada, right? It's not great.
Same
we
in
have
Germany,
really
by the
bad
way.
infrastructure.
Yeah, same here.
So I think it's going to be a while, given the infrastructure problems that we have. yes, it could be possible with the 5G or something like that, where they supposed to have lower latency, but most of the time it still ends up being more like 4G and then 5G in certain areas only. So yeah, it's going to be a while before this is possible. Eventually, yes, we might see something where everything is rendered in the cloud, but I still think that that's going to be like a few years away before that becomes a reality.
Okay, do you think that this is going to be a reality for the Quest 3 already, or more the Quest 4?
Oh, no.
No,
More
okay.
like Quest 4. Yeah,
Okay,
it's
Quest
still
4.
far away. Yeah.
All right. And in terms of platform that could compete with Facebook, do you think it's still Valve with Steam VR, or do you think Sony still wants to be in that game? What do you think? Who is the competitor, or will we just have to accept our Facebook future?
I mean, it's really hard. Like I know, like the Reverb G2 just launched and all that, but it's probably very hard for them to compete in this space, right? They have to sell their headsets like at twice the prices what the Quest 2 is.
Right.
So I'm glad I'm not a headset manufacturer because I wouldn't know what to do. So
Okay, yeah. It's wow. Facebook owns VR and owns us.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well. Tony, what do you think? Okay, so how do you feel about that Facebook forces us to use the Facebook login right now? I mean, it was like a huge topic when they announced it, right? And then probably people forgot about it because people were so excited about the XR2 chipset, and they just accepted it because the hardware is so sexy. How is it for you? Is it a huge topic for you? And how is the feeling in the United States? I will tell you later about the feeling in Germany and in Europe, but tell us more about how does it feel in the US?
Yeah, well, it's affecting me because if it was not a reality, I would have played Jurassic World Aftermath this morning, which is what I plan to do. I plan to buy Jurassic World Aftermath this morning for an Oculus account that I have, and because of this Facebook login thing, it's in some kind of weird limbo, and I can't do that. So I'm definitely not a big fan of it. Now, when you get to the whole privacy thing, different people think different things about privacy, but I saw somebody in chat mention this as well. They were talking about privacy. You know, you get into the privacy comment, and my theory on privacy, some people won't really like this very much because I take the approach that if you're going to have a technologically advanced society, one of the downsides is you ain't gonna have privacy. Like the more technologically advanced a society gets, the less and less privacy you're gonna have. So if you want to move to the woods like the Unabomber and not have electricity and not have internet and all of that, I believe you can actually have privacy maybe for a little while. But if you want to live in modern society, I just don't think it is. I just think I'm kind of defeatist in that regard. And so some people will say, you're the problem. You're the real problem.
You are the problem.
Like, yeah,
Tony, you are the problem.
problem
I agree. You are the problem.
Approach. Okay.
I think
we
should be able to have. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, here in America, a lot of people are kind of pissed off about this Facebook thing, but then I would say just as many are like, who cares? I'm buying it.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I think, the sales numbers speak for themselves. I think they're selling it like hotcakes, right? People, once they see how great this is, they don't care anymore. But honestly, Tony, I really must say, I think you are the problem. No, really, because it's not you. I'm kidding, of course. But the thing is, if you want to have it as convenient as possible, then you're totally right. Because if you want to have it as convenient as possible, then you have your Google, your Alexa, or your Google, or whatever they are called, the microphones, right? Who listen to everything, your assistants, right? And then you simply use your Facebook login. And if you just want it as convenient as possible, yes, then you're giving up your privacy. And I'm doing it myself. Yeah, right. I'm doing it myself too. I am using the Google services because they're so great. I'm using Gmail. I'm using Google Maps, and they know exactly where I went, all the places I went to, because it's convenient, right? But if you, still in this modern age and time, if you would really want to, you could still be very private. You could still use another email service. You could still use Proton Mail.
Okay, time on 1 second.
Yeah, okay.
So I think you can be private with like regular companies, but what about the NSA? What about the CIA? They know everything about everything, every phone, every message,
that is bad.
Privacy does not exist, I don't think. Now, you can say, well, that might be the case, but we don't want Google and Facebook and all these other companies getting our information. But the government has everything, really, I think.
The government definitely.
But it was ruled anti-constitutional as well.
Exactly.
Right?
That is not a good thing to be like this. If you just say, okay, they have everything anyways, right? So that's why people like Snowden, they kind of like showed us this is not the right thing to do, right? And you should probably fight against that. And actually, through his revelations, well, something did change, and actually we're more aware of this. So, Tony, I really believe that you're the problem.
Okay, I'll back off now. Sorry.
No. But it's an interesting thing to actually talk about, and that basically brings us to the next topic here. So, what does it actually mean being forced to connect our Facebook login with our virtual reality headset? So in my opinion, and you know what my opinion is probably, I think it's really something that I don't want to have. I don't want to be the product in virtual reality. I feel uncomfortable with my every gaze and my every movement being like kind of analyzed by some AI to find out how I react to ads and where I look at longer. So simply this kind of feeling of being analyzed, and yes, Facebook is going to analyze us for the sake of serving better ads to us. This is their business model. Their business model is not anymore that platform where you have to pay 30% to the where you earn like 30% from the developers. That was the main business model of Oculus, which I think is amazing. I can totally subscribe to that kind of business model. Yeah, right. Amazing platform. Developers like Guy, they get the most part of the money, and it's fine. It's very clean, right? But the business model of Facebook actually is a totally different one. The business model of Facebook is get to know you as much as possible in order to serve you ads and to sell those ads to people who want to know who are you and how old are you and how tall are you. Now it's very easy to find out thanks to virtual reality, and also like, who are you? And now in VR, we're going to be watched and we're going to be analyzed, our every movement where we look at. And I think for me personally, that's a whole different ball game. And for me, what I believe is happening right now, Facebook knows this. This is like a data treasure for them. It's a whole different ball game than us looking at a website and clicking somewhere. Now it's about they can really monitor every single move, and all the data that is coming out of this is priceless for them. It's perfect. They can even make a much better profile of us than they could before. And you know what? They are buying our compliance to this with a great piece of hardware that only costs $299 and has the XR2 chipset. And you know what? I must really say it. I'm actually a bit saddened by the fact that our community, our VR community, does not really talk about this. We talked about this for a moment when the Quest 2 was not announced. People were a bit unhappy, but then it came out with the XR2 chipset, and our community as a whole stopped thinking and was just raving about the XR2 chipset and totally forgetting all the problems that come with that being analyzed in virtual reality, and now giving our consent to the things that are going to happen in the future. Because yes, right now, it's not like this. People can say, hey, why should I be worried about Facebook watching me play Beat Saber? It doesn't make sense. It's not the problem, right? But in the future, I believe that we're going to be in VR for other things, for working. We're going to be there working. We're going to be there hanging out with our families and friends, like situations where I don't want Facebook to listen in on me or checking my every movement. And I think that is something that is really something we need to talk about. Do we want to have this VR future where one company checks out every single move that we make and knows us so well, or do we prefer like another kind of VR future where we are more anonymous than we are in that Facebook environment? Okay, that was my rant. Tony, what do you think about that rant?
Okay, here, I got something to say. So what do you ultimately want then in the future? Because all the companies, like if there is this treasure trove of consumer data that they can glean from where your eyes are looking and all this stuff, if that's there, how do you de-incentivize a company not to take advantage of all that? So you're basically talking about you got to have some kind of legislation, right, to say that you can't track this, you can't do this, you can't keep data logs on where people's eyes are darting to, or how many seconds they focused on that, or whatever. And then also, we're going to get even deeper into this, folks. If you think just looking at where your eyes is moving is going to be the future, these headsets with like halo bands and stuff, we're going to get into like where they're actually like measuring brain waves and stuff, and like actually knowing like thoughts and intentions. That's coming as well.
I don't want to put a tinfoil hat, but you also forget that there are cameras on those headsets that can scan the room, know what's in your room. They can see, oh, he has an Xbox. Oh, he has that game. Maybe I should recommend to play that game. Or like, there's tons of things they could do. They're not doing that right now. I don't want people to freak out. But
it's all gonna
the cameras is also scary in a way.
Yeah, and one of the things that we want the most, well, one of the things that I really want with the future of VR is what Facebook is calling live maps, and what Qualcomm calls scene recognition and understanding, which is the idea of having all these external cameras that are analyzing your play space, determining where there's sofas, there's tables, large physical objects, and basically using like machine learning to kind of like understand typical family room environments and stuff like that, so that eventually we can be in VR and not just have to be in a tiny little cubby hole. We can walk around our house.
Sure, it's going to happen.
Knows,
of course.
It's all happening. And so when it does that, it's going to be able to scan everything in your house, and it's going to know whether you're a smoker or a non-smoker, whether you have pets, whether you don't have pets, whether you eat this type of food or that type of food, because it's going to be able to scan everything. And it's going to, the bottom line, this goes back to this reality that if you're going to have a technologically advanced society, privacy goes bye-bye. Because here's the thing.
Yeah,
you can
you should make the choice. You should make the choice. You should make, there should be, I think, in my opinion, but this is a problem.
No.
If we now are just okay with it, like, okay, perfect, this is an amazing device, I will totally sign all the terms and conditions, then we send the signal to Facebook and to Google, yes, it's all right. Just give them the sexy hardware, and we can totally take all the data and do all the bad things that probably we don't want them to do. But if we would actually discuss this more, and probably if like the governments will really step in and say, hey, it's not a great thing that this happens. It's not a great thing that Facebook forces us to use our social media account to log in to the Quest 2, then probably they will find out, hey, it's not so easy. We cannot bribe them with the $299 hardware to do all these things. And you know what? I think, honestly, I'm really happy that this is happening here in Germany. In Germany, the German I don't know what it's called, anti-monopoly organization from the government. Antitrust.
Cartel or something.
Anti-cartel. They are going to prepare a case against Facebook that they're going to check, is it actually lawful that they would force us to use this Facebook login to simply use the Quest 2 and using their monopoly and to do all these things. And you know what? I think it's the right thing that they're checking it out. And probably other European states and even the US or Canada, they will look at this case here in Germany, and probably they will also do something against it. Because in my opinion, I believe that Facebook is misusing their monopoly now in order to drive away competition, like, for example, Godin with his amazing virtual desktop, or Bigscreen VR. Driving away other competition with, like, having the prices so low and all these kind of things, and forcing us to use the Facebook login. And honestly speaking, I believe that Facebook made a mistake with forcing us with the Facebook login. It's so short-sighted, in my opinion, because for MRTV, for this channel, if they would have not done it, I would be like telling everyone and their mothers to buy a Quest 2 because it's amazing. And I don't have these problems. I wouldn't have these problems that I have now. Now, unfortunately, I have to tell everyone, yeah, it is an amazing headset, but you are forced to use a Facebook login. If you say something that is not according to Facebook policy, because they make the rules, right? If you say something wrong in a social VR environment, they can totally block you from getting getting into your account, and all your games might be gone. So this but is like a pain in the butt. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's I think Facebook made a mistake here, a mistake for themselves. Would you agree, Guy, with this? That they made a mistake here?
Technically, they could already associate your Oculus user with your Facebook account. They know who you are, right? Because you use the credit card, you use your name on it, right? So they could already associate you with your Facebook if you have one. I think it's a mistake because it joins two things that are unrelated to each other, like a social media account and a gaming account, which are totally separate things. And I think that the problem is the monopoly here, because if there was competition, if there were multiple wireless VR solutions out there, people would be able to say with their money, oh, I don't want to buy the headset that forces me to have a social media account. They could buy the competitor, right? But there's no competition right now. So people are forced to, if they want to use VR, to go to the Oculus platform. So I think if there was competition, that would be, I think a lot of people would be able to essentially make one more successful than the other for bad decisions like that. But right now, Facebook isn't penalized for that.
Right, but it might happen. So in Germany, we cannot buy any kind of Oculus product since a couple of months. So people cannot buy the Quest 2 here in Germany. They cannot.
How did you get yours?
Yeah, I got mine from Amazon France. So because it's Europe, I can simply buy in any European country, and it's just like buying from Amazon here in Germany. So that's no problem, and people in Germany do it. But but this might still be a problem for Facebook. So I think it's a bit short-sighted that they're trying to force us into Facebook. And in my opinion, what would have been much smarter, just make this association with the Facebook login just so amazing that you want to do it. Like, for example, Facebook Horizon probably is going to be an amazing service. And probably they could say, okay, you can only use Facebook Horizon if you associate your Facebook account, because this is our social thing. Probably lots of people would have done it like on a voluntarily basis instead of being forced to. And then there would also not be any of these kind of like competitive problems and antitrust things that they are now facing here in Germany and probably soon in other countries as well. Do you agree, Tony, that they should have done it in a different way, like not forcing us? But like
here's what they should have done.
Yeah, tell us.
Well, the different way they should have done it is when they bought Oculus, they should have said, okay, that's great. It's called Facebook VR, and the day that you buy it, Facebook account. Yeah, there's a Microsoft account for Xbox, there's PlayStation account, there's a Nintendo account. Well, this is Facebook VR, Facebook account, baby. If they did it from day one, people would have been pissed way back then, but they would have eventually got over it. And by this point in time, nobody would bat an eye about it. But because we had Oculus accounts and everybody had Oculus accounts, and then now they're like, oh, now you've got to connect a Facebook account. They screwed up there. They should have did it from the very beginning with Facebook VR. They should just drop the whole Oculus branding. Now, I'm not saying I want that, and I'm not saying that's good. I'm saying from a business standpoint.
Yeah, right.
And they also promised that the Facebook login would not be required. Remember, Palmer made that statement because Facebook told him, no, it's never going to be a requirement, right?
Yeah.
And then they backtracked on that, which is, I mean, for people who bought a Quest 1 and bought games on that, I kind of understand why they can be pissed about, having to do that now.
Right. Wow, this is really, really interesting. So, what do you think, Tony? Why do we not hear so many things about about this issue that Facebook is owning this space. Like, I mean, in the community, I was kind of shocked, honestly speaking, that so few people talked about this. Right, there was this kind of talk in the beginning when they said, "Okay, you have to log in," and then some people were unhappy, but then everybody like stopped to talk about this once the Quest 2 was announced because of the XR2 chipset. And since then, basically, this is not a topic in the VR community, right? What do you think
Yeah,
about
well,
this?
what are
Not
you
so
going to
much.
do? I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to go back to flat gaming or something?
No,
If you're
yeah,
staying in VR, I mean, you don't got a lot of options, because even if you were to be like, okay, well, F Facebook, I'm going to get a Valve Index and I'm only going to play, I'm going to use Steam and I'm going to play PC VR games. Well, the real reality, though, that we're starting to head towards, the sales of content on Quest are so good compared to any other ecosystem
right. You're
that
right.
any big games that are going to be funded are going to be Quest central. And so the games are going to be designed for the Quest, and then some of them are going to be ported to PC, but you're going to be getting the leftovers. So you kind of have to have a Quest at some point. I mean,
Right.
it's really hard to try to stay out of that ecosystem.
You're so right. And that's a whole other topic, right? There's some PC players I know they're super unhappy that probably the PC VR market is going down and down because for developers, it's financially not a viable thing to make like a super exciting PC VR app anymore because, well, Guy can say the same thing, right? You're going to make the money
Yeah.
on the Quest right now. You must be on the Quest.
You make like 10 times more sales on Quest today just
Okay.
because there are more people having it. So you cannot make any game, right? With a mobile chip, you're limited in terms of horsepower. So depending on your experience, you might choose still to do PC, but you have to remember that if you choose to do so, you target a smaller market. But it's kind of similar to what happens with the phone games, right? Because
Right.
everybody has a phone, right? They didn't stop making PC games, right? They still make awesome and great PC games, and that's still a market. So I don't think that the PC VR market is going to disappear. I just think it's just going to be harder for companies to target that in terms of a business decision.
Right. Wow. So lots of exciting stuff about this topic, right? Like Facebook and should we say thank you to Facebook for pushing this topic so much, right? Or should we say like, damn, there's so many bad parts involved with this whole thing. So I'm still not sure exactly if I should be thankful for all the VR stuff that we get, right? And for so many people that get into VR now, or should I be more concerned about the direction in which our VR community is going? That's still something that I'm unsure about. And I think everybody should think about it a bit more. And hopefully, I really hope that our talk today could be a bit thought-provoking and let people think a bit more about the topic, that actually not everything is great about a $299 Quest 2, and that some people might be driven out of competition, that there's some problems, quite a lot of problem with developers, who get their apps copied, like what's happening to Virtual Desktop right now, and that not everything is just amazing with the Quest 2 and how Facebook is dominating the market. Right, I think we're getting closer to the end of today's second episode of the Next Dimension podcast. And Tony, any last words for this episode?
Yeah, I mean, well, actually, one last thing I would say, it would be super interesting if some YouTuber out there maybe did a alternative history where Facebook never bought VR. Facebook never bought Oculus. Because here's the thing, if Facebook never bought Oculus, something would have happened. I mean, Oculus would have gotten bigger. They would have got venture capitalist money. There would have been a product, but the history would have been very different.
Right.
And it's something to consider. And I think it would be fascinating. I mean, like, obviously no one really knows for sure, but to try to think how far back, like, think how far we've come with Facebook. We do have this $299 product that pretty amazing and everything, but imagine if they were never there. what would we be doing right now? What would we be playing right now? Where would the ecosystems be and all the games and everything?
Right, that makes so much sense, and it's a really interesting thought. Where would we be without this investment? I think we would still be enjoying our virtual reality, and we wouldn't have a $299 device, I believe, but eventually it would also happen at one point. But you know what? I don't think VR is doomed because of Facebook. As much as I'm like criticizing Facebook and stuff, I think there's going to be like another movement. I think whenever there's something like what's happening right now, that there's one company that wants to control that space like they do, there's going to be people who dislike it. There's going to be people who will go to the alternatives once they are there, and at one point there will be alternatives. I don't think that one company is going to own that market for forever. And yeah, I think our future is still pretty bright. And I was just reading something here. Without virtual desktop, I would not have bought the Quest 2. So yeah, Guy, really, like because of you, lots of people bought that device. It's crazy. So Guy, what are your last words for today's podcast?
Well, I probably want to end up on a more positive note.
Right.
You have to remember that all the R&D that's required to be able to have VR where it is today, like that took a lot of investment and a lot of work from a lot of talented engineers and people. So we have to thank them for that. And there's no one else that's really investing in VR as much as Facebook is, right? Microsoft kind of dipped their toe in it. Google abandoned VR, right? And Apple, well, we'll never know until they release something. So we have to be thankful for that. We can still talk about the issues and bring that up. And I think it's good that we keep talking about the competitive issues. But I think it's a great headset and people should be enjoying VR today because we have really, really amazing products out there. And, I think it's the computing platform of the future. It's going to take a while to get there, but I think it will be a popular platform.
I think so too. Thank you so much for these last words. And also, again, from me, as much as I criticize Facebook for what they're doing right now, I still thank them for pushing the topic as much as they do and for bringing that beautiful device out there. But just like you said, Guy, I think it's also important that we do talk about the negative parts, right? That we also discuss it. And hopefully through this open discussions, they might also think about some things. They might want to think about how they deal with the developers, right? Because they need you as well. They need you to do new things and to try out new things. So I really hope that we could all somehow meet in the middle and simply bring forward what we love so much with it, which is virtual reality. And with these beautiful words, this is the end of the second episode of the Next Dimension podcast. I really hope that all of you enjoyed this podcast and this talk. If yes, give it a thumbs up. And again, don't forget, this is also in all your podcasts now. You can already find it on Spotify. You can find it on the Google platform. And you can find it also on SoundCloud. And very soon, hopefully, you're also going to find us on iTunes. We're still waiting for Apple to acknowledge it. And then we're also going to be on iTunes. That's it. And now I'm looking forward to see you guys in the next episode. Until then, bye-bye. All right, we're still online. And that's it. And thank you so much for being here, Guy. And thanks, Tony, of course. So we're still now online. And I just want to say thank you to all the people who are watching this live right now, the 241 people. I really hope that you enjoyed that podcast. And thanks for being here, Austin, Barlow, Duggars, Technoglitch, and all the people here. And this is the after hours or the after minutes, only a few minutes. Then I'm going to let you go. Just wanted to ask you, Guy, what do you think about the podcast show?
Great. I think it's good. I mean, most of the time when I'm invited on a show, it's to talk against Facebook. So
yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I mean, I understand. But no, I think it's great to be talking about it today because if you imagine what's going to happen in the future, it's very important to discuss those things today so that we can have a world where, or we keep our privacy. I know Tony is already gave
Tony
up.
has given up on it.
But I think it's important to still keep that in mind and talk about it, because there should be a way to be able to have a digital world where we don't have to worry about those things.
Right. Exactly. So it's good that we talk about it. And Tony, what do you think about the second episode?
Yeah, I like it. I kind of like it with 3 people. It's just, the more people you have, the more you have to wait, to get your turn to talk about something.
Right.
So 3 is a pretty good mix.
Yeah, 3 is nice, especially if there is a guest like today, Guy, right? It was amazing. We could just talk with him and right. So very cool episode. I enjoyed it a lot, and I have a good feeling. Even though my T-shirt says I have a bad feeling, but I have a really good feeling about this podcast. Yeah, thank you to everyone. Also, thank you to Richards for an adult beverage minus the 30%. Thank you so much for this. And also thank you. I think I had another donation before. Let me just check on this. Thank you to Eric Christoffersen for 50 Norwegian crowns. How can I use virtual desktop with the Quest 2 when I have G2 connected to my PC? My PC just started G2. Yeah, you have to disconnect the G2.
Unfortunately, yes. There's a priority system in SteamVR, and it doesn't always work well, so you have to unplug the PCVR headset most of the time.
Right. Okay, perfect. Yeah, for all of the people who are still watching right now, please give it a thumbs up, and also tell other people about this podcast. This is a bit of a different podcast where we also talk about the hot topics that are not so nice to talk about, right? Probably not everybody wants to talk so openly against Facebook. So this is going to happen here on the channel. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and we're going to see each other